Hello and welcome back. Thank you guys for tuning back in. Now, if you happen to catch my previous iteration of this, I decided to pull that video because I just kind of rushed through it and I wasn't very happy with how it turned out, so doing it again. But as I explained in the previous iteration, I will be taking a brief break from the linear narrative I've been presenting on my channel thus far to enumerate the reasons why I believe, based upon my personal observations and experiences, that women are not ideally suited to assume leadership roles, and why creating a female led society all the way across the board is probably the craziest thing that has ever been done in human history. And if they pull my YouTube channel, you can find me on Rumble. But anyways, let's dive right into it. Reason number one, and the most important reason of them all: women have no biological incentive to prioritize the welfare of men. Men are wired to prioritize the welfare of women and to place women's needs above their own needs. Men are wired to derive a sense of personal fulfillment and purpose from providing for women. Men are even wired to derive a sense of honor from protecting and dying for women. By contrast, women are not wired to do these things on behalf of men, which there's nothing wrong with that under normal circumstances. But women are actually wired to prioritize their own needs and the needs of their children above that of men, including their husbands. And many women resent and despise the idea of men depending upon them. They especially resent the idea of having to provide for men. The reason why male led societies have traditionally always worked despite man's flaws is because men are wired this way, and because men are wired to prioritize the welfare of women, and because men do derive a sense of personal fulfillment and purpose from providing for women. Western society as we see it today is a reflection of that, and Western society was built with women's welfare as the utmost priority. And this is certainly not to say that all men are sterling creatures or that all men live up to this role, but men are wired to perform this role, and generally speaking, most men do this. Reason number two: women are largely unable to empathize with men. And this may be a controversial statement, but this is something that is readily observable in today's society. It seems that for many women, they are not able to understand, nor relate to, nor even perceive the suffering of a man, which stands in sharp contrast to men who often empathize with women to a self compromising fault. And funny enough, for many women, it seems the degree to which they are willing to empathize with a man is directly predicated upon their level of attraction for the man, which in turn is directly predicated upon his level of success. And when a man is not deemed attractive, the woman typically does not regard him at all. And this is something that carries over into the workplace. Reason number three: women have an overriding and peculiar group preference mentality, especially in today's world. Now, it's already been mentioned that women are already wired to prioritize their own needs above that of men, but something that's really only become apparent in the past several years is this peculiar group preference mentality that women have. Now, it's no big secret that women have been programmed to intensify and cultivate their loyalty to one another in the name of solidarity and in the name of sisterhood. But unfortunately, what this translates to in the workplace is widespread and rampant discrimination against men. Women favor each other when it comes to imparting opportunities, upward mobility, resources, and everything else you can name. Women's group preference mentality is also something that very visibly applies to their personal objectives whenever they enter certain fields. Now, it's already been mentioned that women are wired to prioritize their own welfare above that of men, but what hasn't been mentioned, and a peculiar phenomenon that we're witnessing in today's world, is women who enter various fields with the intent of innovating purely on behalf of women. For example, there's no shortage of female politicians today who, as soon as they enter the field, they begin advocating for more rights and more privileges for women. And every word they speak, they tend to relate through the lens of being a woman. Any speech they make, they somehow make it about being a woman. Likewise, there's many women who will enter fields like or pharmacological positions, and they'll begin to create a more sophisticated form of birth control for women or a human growth hormone for women. And all the way across the board in various fields, when women enter them, they seem to be obsessed with innovating purely on women's behalf, whereas when men enter these fields, they're interested in innovating on behalf of everybody. Women's group preference mentality also applies to their empathy and their level of moral support. And one doesn't have to look very far in today's society to see how overwhelmingly supportive women are of other women, whereas towards men they tend to be cold and indifferent, again, unless the man is deemed as attractive. But a large reason for this, like I said, is because women in recent years, they've been programmed through feminist propaganda to increase their solidarity and to even withdraw moral support from men and to channel it towards other women. Reason number 4, and this one's going to be controversial, but women have a unique and peculiar aversion to accountability, and they're extremely adverse to things like being exposed for wrongdoing or being publicly disgraced, humiliated, shamed, or ridiculed. And many women will go to great lengths to conceal negligence, which is not to say that there aren't men who will do that, but there's definitely a disparity between men and women in this regard, and there's actually a reason behind it. It has a lot to do with women's temperament and where they're situated in the human hierarchy in relation to men. You see, men, being the larger fish in the sea, have traditionally went out in the world and have taken what they wanted. That's how men have traditionally survived, and that's how men are wired to survive. By contrast, women, being the smaller fish in the sea, have traditionally had to rely upon men to give them what they want, and that's how women have survived. And believe it or not, that's how women are still wired to survive. So, where men have had to figure out better ways to get what they need by going out in the world and taking it, women have had to figure out better ways to get men to give them what they want. And this is why women are so adept at certain things. Like, I hate to say this, but they're adept at manipulation. They're adept at utilizing their charm to entice men to give them what they want, and a lot of other things that men are not nearly as adept at. And it's because of where women are situated in this human hierarchy. But because of where women are situated in this hierarchy, they have a certain fear that they carry with them, a unique fear, and it's related to their reputations. They have a great fear of their reputations being tarnished, because if they are despised in the eyes of men, it can profoundly affect their ability to survive, at least biologically speaking. And this is the real reason why you see such a weird disparity between men and women when it comes to accountability. This is the real reason why women are so adverse to accountability and things like being shamed and disgraced. But this doesn't just operate on a singular level, it also operates on a collective level. And women will cover for each other. They will cover negligence and any amount of wrongdoing for other women in some cases, because they worry about the impact that one woman's exposure will have upon the rest of women, especially if that woman gets caught doing something that doesn't reflect very good on women as a whole. Reason number 5, and a huge one I've noticed, is that women tend to be incredibly unfair when it comes to dealing with wrongdoing between the genders, and women tend to be fantastically unforgiving towards men's flaws, men's shortcomings, and men's transgressions. For many men, all they have to do is say one wrong word or make one wrong move or have one moment of weakness, and many women will write that guy off forever, where by contrast, in a lot of cases with their fellow women, they'll defend a woman all day no matter what she's done, even in cases of the most depraved negligence. Reason number 6. By elevating women into leadership roles and incentivizing placing them there, we are alienating men from roles that are fundamental to their own development. In today's world, we tend to greatly lament the notion that men aren't men anymore, but the fact of the matter is, men are not born, men are made. Men are made through a lifelong process of socialization and psychological conditioning. Socialization and conditioning that comes with the territory of being in decision-making roles, being in leadership roles, and learning how to navigate these roles and taking on the responsibility that comes with those roles. It's these experiences that are always shaping men and that are teaching men how to become a man. And a man never stops learning how to become a man. Becoming a man is a lifelong process. By alienating men from these roles and inserting women into these roles under the guise of the future being female, or the guise of men have already had their chance to lead, now it's women's turn, we're essentially depriving men from experiences that are fundamental to their own development. One phenomenon that we're currently experiencing as a result of incentivizing women's upward mobility at all costs is that women and men alike are beginning to struggle romantically. Women are naturally hypergamous creatures, and they naturally desire to marry a man who earns more money than they do, who is more highly educated than themselves, and who has a higher social standing. But in a world where women's upward mobility is being incentivized at all costs, while at the same time we're alienating men from these roles and are essentially discriminating against them, women are finding that men are no longer eligible suitors, and it's creating monumental problems for the dating market. The effects of this are being felt full force in America right now. Above all, it's always worth taking into consideration the fact that if men don't succeed in this society, society is going to kick them into the gutter. A man's value in the eyes of men and women alike is based upon his level of success. His identity is based around it. His sense of purpose is based around it. And men who are not successful are often not even regarded as human beings, especially by women. And for that reason, we should never be in a situation in American society where women all the way across the board are doing better economically than the men are. One final note I want to make on that: it's true that men are motivated by a desire to provide for their wives and their families, but what needs to be understood is when men realize and when they know that this need is already being met by their wife, it greatly diminishes their motivation, and there's no real way to fake this. Men have traditionally been motivated by a sense of urgency based upon their need to provide for their family. And when men know that this role is already being fulfilled by the wife, their motivation tends to fall through the floor. And I personally believe this is one of the key reasons why the men, grown men, have such a lack of motivation in this country. And that's it. That's a list of my chiefest reasons why I believe that women are not ideally suited to assume leadership roles, and why pushing for a female-led society is absolutely ridiculous. If they pull my channel down, you can find me on Rumble. And one last thing, I want to give a quick shout out to my friends Joel and Leo Orniz. Everybody should go check out their YouTube channel. It's called Western Culture Through God's Eyes. It's an excellent channel, and they make some great videos with a lot of really excellent and insightful points. I don't agree with everything, but that's the beauty of living in America. Nevertheless, it's an excellent channel, and you guys all need to go check it out. Till next time.